maar nu meer nee.
Oké. Naast mij Colin Wilson, tekenaar van de jonge jaren van Blueberry. Inmiddels is daar 1 album van verschenen, The Outlaws van Missouri. Verder, ander werk van hem is de serie Raël, die verschijnt in het blad Circus. En mogelijk binnenkort ook in de Nederlandse vertaling. Ik zal het zo vragen. Colin Wilson, can you tell something about yourself? You come from New Zealand?
Yes, I was born in New Zealand and lived there until 1980, doing various different artistic things, publicity mainly, because it's such a small country. I always really enjoyed comics, but there's no possibility in New Zealand to produce any original work except for a fanzine. But in 1980 I decided to take a holiday and come and have a look at this part of the world and see if it was possible to find some work here.
You did some work in New Zealand comic magazine Strips?
Yes, I started with some friends. I started a fanzine there, and it was through beginning the fanzine that I became more and more interested in comics, because originally it was just something interesting to work with, to publish a little bit of my own work. But I began to meet people that were interesting, and we all became more and more interested, to the point where I thought if it was possible I would like to make my comic work a full-time profession.
You first went to England?
France. Like most New Zealanders, we tend to gravitate towards London or England, because obviously it's a place that's a little bit easier to survive and get around in. But I'd always hoped to come to Europe at that time, but because it was so important to us, I felt that it would be good to, when I finally decided that it was a good idea to stay in Europe, it was worthwhile taking our progress rather slower and making sure that we learned a little bit of the language in Europe before we came. We visited Holland and France while living in London, but it was also served as a good apprenticeship for me, because I could work on 2000 AD, a weekly magazine there, and for 2 years I worked producing comic pages.
So about the moment you arrived in England, you immediately had some work to do?
No, not at all. I spent 2 or 3 months living off savings, and another 2 or 3 months more or less bumming around, trying to talk to as many people as possible, and also meet people and get to know the business a little bit better. And also you have to wait, you go and talk to editors, but it takes months and months before they finally decide they might have a use for you.
You didn't only talk to the British publishers, but you went in that time to France too, or not?
No, not at all, no. Originally I thought it would be better to make ourselves a little bit more secure, and I felt that I wasn't anywhere near the standard required for publishing in Europe, and also that I needed to know a lot more about the European comics before trying to publish something here. So 2 years in London were a terrific apprenticeship, and I think I benefited greatly from it, because it's a good way of becoming more and more professional. The need to produce work quickly and well and of a good standard.
Working for 2018 was for you a sort of learning to draw comics?
Well, very much so. Learning to be professional, I think, would be more accurate. It was a very good, it was a sort of pressure situation where you have to produce work very quickly, and a lot of work, and it works. I mean, it produces things out of me that I didn't know was possible beforehand.
The things I've never seen 2080 actually. Were you working alone, or were you working alone or in a sort of studio?
No, working alone, very much like everyone does in Europe, but unlike here in London, the work is controlled very much by the editors. So the script arrives by mail, or he telephones. You get the script, look through it. There's very little. You're almost working like a normal job, because there's very little discussion goes on. You take the script, you go away for 2 weeks, work, produce 4 pages, they arrive back, and then it goes into the system. It's a little bit like working in a factory, but because of that situation, it's good as well, because you can learn a lot. I found it really, really fascinating.
How did you start to draw blueberry?
That was pretty much by accident. I'd begun my series in France, and I believe a friend who we had sent some photocopies of the original first few pages. He had shown the pages to Jean-Michel Jarlet initially, and over a period of about a year, we eventually were asked to draw blueberry. I think they had been looking for people with the idea of restarting La Jeunesse, and purely by chance I happened to be there, so they asked me.
Did you know the work of Jean Giraud?
Oh, very much so, yes. He would be the main reason why I became more interested in comics in New Zealand, because I had seen some of his work and was so it made such an impression on me that I wanted to see more of his work, see more of other artists that are working in Europe.
Could you get albums of his work in New Zealand?
With difficulty, yes. They're not available because no European material is available in New Zealand or Australia. But by publishing strips, I got to meet people that had albums, and so I could get to see them. And then also getting to know people in this part of the world who could send me copies.
Yeah. What kind of material is available to the general reader in New Zealand?
Normally the English language material that is available in America or in England. There's a system, an arrangement where the unsold copies of comic material in England and America are sent to Australia and New Zealand. And so a collector can begin collecting, but occasionally there are things missing. And it's and the other main difficulty is that things are 4 or 5 months behind.
But what kind of American material is it for you?
All the standard material, Marvel, DC, the material that's available there. Not quite the range. I'm not quite so sure now as well the situation, because in America I believe things have gone through quite a change with direct sales. But almost anything that's available in America is available in New Zealand.
Yeah. Will there soon be a second Blueberry album by you?
I'm working on it at the moment, yes.
You're a slow worker?
No, with the science... Well, I am a slow worker, but with the science fiction series as well. I plan to work on one album of science fiction, and a second La Jeunesse de Blueberry, and then another album of science fiction.
Maybe they should hire a third drawer.
No. I think we don't want it to become too much like a factory. Originally, I was asked to produce work so that there would be one Blueberry album per year. It's almost like that at the moment, because it's been a year since La Jeunesse was published, but and it'll be probably a year before my next album sees publication. But it's not something that needs to be pushed really, really hard, because Jean-Michel Jarlet takes good care of the scripts, and I think we're working at a speed that he's comfortable with as well.
Ik denk dat we hiermee het interview maar even af moeten sluiten.
Okay, we'll stop it.
Okay.
We can continue upstairs.